Ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready to crumble!
I'm Joshua Kemble, and welcome to Joshua Kemble's Livestream. I've been a freelance illustrator and graphic designer for over 20 years. I was an art director for 9 years. And when I'm not art directing and working on illustrations and graphic designs, I'm working on comic books and graphic novels, and that's usually what I do during my streams. And while conversations can go all over the place on this stream, from spicy and entertaining to goofy and silly, one thing stays consistent throughout every stream. I'll always be working on art. So pull up a chair, get your art supplies out, and get ready for an entertaining show that'll keep you company while you work on your own personal art projects. This is Joshua Kemble's Art Stream. Can you hear this now? Oh my gosh. That whole time, none of my audio was working. I'm a professional, I swear. I should have tested that. Let's see here. Let's see if this actually works. If this is working, it should be working. Can you hear me now? I know, Philip, I'm glad you joined in because I was just talking for a little bit for quite a while. That was a good chunk of time where I was talking and introduced the show and everything, and didn't realize I was talking to no one. So let me recap some of what I said. I was saying that yesterday I went into a little bit of what kind of frustrates me or concerns me about the advent of AI and art and stuff like that. But and it was a really pretty fun stream, and I think I made some. I think I figured out a more clear position on how I feel about AI. Like, I think it's very demeaning to people and art in general, and I think the devaluing of art is just something that, like, commercially is inevitably going to happen, and always has kind of happened in industry and stuff. But it makes me value the process of producing and making stuff even more so, because in a world where that's going to become more and more rare, because people will have less incentive to do it. I guess the only byproduct I could see that's like beneficial is maybe it will separate the wolves from the sheep. I don't know if that makes sense. Phil says, that's so frustrating. I've done that a few times. Yeah, me too. I definitely am no streaming master. So, but hey, it's okay. It's just a live stream where I'm hanging and working on stuff. By the way, what I'm working on right now is page 175 of Not Death But Love, The Strange Supernatural Story of Elizabeth Barrett Browning. And what I was explaining for like a good chunk of time before the audio came in was that I was having I've been having a pretty like hard sleep time, like meaning I haven't been sleeping a lot over break because I'm trying to gun through pages, but I definitely am like feeling it, like feeling a little bit of the exhaustion. But this page didn't come out as fast as I wanted it to. But it's partially because there's 2, 4, 6, 8, 9, 10 panels on it. So it's kind of a more complicated page. And so it makes sense that would take like a little longer, but it's sad because I was averaging about a page a day. But I even think I mentioned that on a previous stream where somebody was like, wow, a page a day. That's a really good thing. And I did mention that a lot of those pages had just like simplified panel arrangements and also like a lot of close-ups. And so that did speed up the process a little bit. Whereas, on a page like this, where there's a lot of actions and a lot of things going on in the panels, it's always going to take a little longer. But the nice thing about graphic novels is a lot of the time that'll average out. Like, you're going to have really complicated pages, more simple pages, and trying to be consistent with the output. If you're putting in consistent quality on every panel, then, you're inevitably going to have pages that are harder than other pages, which, shouldn't be a surprise to anybody who makes art and stuff. Anyhow, the other thing that I had mentioned was I am about 4 songs into the next album, and I was kind of mentioning really appreciating my friend Robbie, who has mastered pretty much every No Saboteurs thing and all of my solo stuff, and given me a lot of encouragement and support in making music. And I was actually kind of mentioning that first off, I'm going to probably play those 4 songs for you guys, so that'll be cool. But the other thing I was mentioning was that that one of the cool things about, having somebody who believes in your work, like, I think it was originally Robbie had reached out to me about like playing music and what I was up to and stuff. And I kind of shared it. I was sharing little YouTube clips of like our band practicing and stuff. And I think he was one of the first people who reached out and was like, hey, are you guys recording? Are you doing this stuff? How can I help you? And booked us gigs and stuff like that. So I am forever indebted to Robbie. And I also wanted to mention just the power of a lot of the time in this day and age, like when we like something, we don't tend to speak up about it. I know I'm guilty of this too. Like I've been listening to a ton of YouTube videos and things that I enjoy. And often because I'm a bit of a curmudgeon, I won't like express or comment saying that I like something, right? It's so much easier. I find this for myself too. It's so much easier to speak up about things you dislike than things you like. And I was just reminded, just thinking about like the 4 songs that have tracked so far, that in a weird way, a lot of the solo albums I'm making are literally for like the 3 friends who like really, really enjoy what I'm doing. It doesn't take a lot to encourage an artist. And I guess that's the part that I was going to kind of get into is like sometimes just 1 or 2 people, speaking up and saying, hey, you're on the right track with this thing, like keep making creative work, can be enough to like kind of boost your output and stuff. And I wanted to make sure I acknowledge that, right? Because it's like my friend Robbie is one of the first people who, like, when I was like, hey, I'm thinking about doing like a solo thing, was like, not only do I want to hear it, but I want to help. How can I help? And that's like an invaluable resource to have, and a really good person to just kind of take their time and encourage collaboration and creation of music and stuff. And I know that I'm not the only person that he does this for. Like he's a kind of cornerstone in our local community for like art and music. And I just think that's really cool to kind of do that. And it's a good reminder for me to actually continue to do that, especially with the advent of AI and stuff like that, where, generally, like I expressed on my previous stream, I think AI is a danger to art, and I think it's a danger to really like. I think it's gonna stop a lot of people from doing creative work, especially younger people, because it's like the desire may not even be there to like make this stuff if they can just click a button and have it done for them. And so I think especially in times like that, like encouraging like local artists, and this isn't me trying to beg for encouragement or support or anything like that, because I'm fine. Like I'm okay with my life. I like what I'm doing. And I've been fortunate, right? But I just was thinking about like, part of the drive when I first picked up a guitar to like play music was there were sounds that I heard in my head that no one was making. And so I kind of had to figure out how to like make those sounds like a reality. And I really do wonder if I was younger and I had that same inclination and I could just go on like a website and just type in a prompt or something and get the exact sound or song that I wanted to hear without any effort. Would I have would I have explored expressing myself or bettering my skill set or anything like that? I don't know, and like that to me, I think that just really solidifies that I need to be better at encouraging friends of mine who are making stuff. And like, I think Artcasters is a good thing for that, where it's like hopefully having friends on and people we know who like are making stuff, just to give a supportive voice or outlet for that, I think can be a really big deal. Chris said, sharing things you like is vulnerable. Supporting a thing that's already popular is easy. Hearing some public voices of encouragement can help a creator exponentially. Yeah. Paul said that too, 100%. He said, yeah, I feel that too. So it's like, it just thinking about, cause I'm going to be sharing these tracks, and like 2 of them are mastered by my buddy, Robbie. And I was just remembering that I need to really double down on mentioning how cool he is, just as a person, for being so supportive and like collaborating. And not only that, like being a real reason I even make these things, because like, there's like, in reality, and this isn't a complaint, it's just a reality. It's like, not a ton of people are listening to my music. So like, why have I continued to make like, like, I think I'm on like my 6th album or 7th album for the year. I can't, not for the year, but for the last 2 years. And I've had this incredible output. And again, of things I'm pretty proud of. Like, I think these are really good songs and stuff, but it's like the main reason, one of the main reasons I've continued to do it is the support of my buddy Robbie, who's at Lost Woods recording. He's just such a cool guy. And the fact that like somebody's digging it makes a difference, It's like, I think, with comics, it's kind of a similar thing where it's like, I probably might end up just doing it anyway. There's like 2 main motivators for artists, I think. And I've experienced and witnessed both in my lifetime. One is when somebody believes in you, it can really inspire you to make art. Another inspiration, because we're all insane, those of us who make art, especially comics, which is the F 'em. So my life has been a balance between those 2 things as motivations. And as I get older, I think the encouragement motivation works a lot better than when I was younger. The disbelief was almost a better motivator. Kawagua will know this, but like, Kawagua knew me back in the day when I did my first comic. And he might even know the guy who said this. I don't want to put him on blast, but there's a very, very well-known artist that Kawagua and I were both friends with in high school, or not in high school, in college, who was also like a relatively negative person, which is why I don't want to put this person on blast. But that person, when I was making Numb, my first comic, told me, "Why are you applying for the Zarek grant? You'll never get it." And it was the same friend who also said, with my wife, like, you can ask her on a date, but she's never going to say yes. And like, and in a weird way, that's a form of motivation too. Although I am no longer friends with this person because just the negativity just got to be too much. But I do have those 2 drives, like the demon and the angel. The angel's driven by positive reinforcement and stuff, and just knowing that what I say matters. And then the other part of me, which is why I wonder, maybe I would make music regardless, is I've always had a part of me that's also driven by the, well, F you, I'll show you, which is not the healthiest. But I think a lot of artists are kind of in that strange balance of like, I will prove my worth, and also, or I will prove your belief in me is not insane by like making something cool. But I think both can be valid, in this wacky world of making things, that we're all kind of in. But I'm trying to be better in my life, to be a voice of belief in other people, because I do think that makes a big difference. I think that's a more sustainable drive than like doubt and, proving somebody wrong, or like going to, there is like a fun thing when you're a musician. And I haven't done a lot of live shows, but one of the things that also can drive a really good show is going into a crowd that completely like did not come for you. Like, right. That can be really fun to play a show where you're like, oh, we'll show you. Like, we're going to blow your mind, that can be a really good motivator too. But yeah, Paul said, Josh and Chris, two of the best graphic novelists who are undiscovered. Chris is kind of discovered. Chris just got, I think, Chris, the Planet of the Apes poster that you worked on is like, was up for like a huge award. So I feel like Chris is getting discovered. Chris says, I don't have much of the I'll show you draw. I do get a lot out of being around ambitious people. Yeah, same here. Paul said, I wonder a lot about this. The FU has never worked for me. My productivity directly corresponds to my happiness. Yeah, I mean, the FU has been a drive for me in the past. But again, you know, the friend who was who I was driven to prove them wrong is no longer a friend from that era. And then my buddy Chris, who was like a supportive guy through that whole process, is still friends. Like I'm still friends with, right? I think we feed each other with ambition and also support. And it's not like if I ask Chris to like honestly look at my work, like he'll critique it, like he'll give me a real critique. But I feel like I've never had Kawagua tell me like, why are you doing this? You'll never succeed. Whereas that other friend who's been kind of cut out of my life, that's all he would do. And so it's like, I do think one's more sustainable, but the power of FU can be really cool. Like, in music, especially, you know, playing live shows, there were times where we would intentionally, piss off an audience, and it was kind of fun. So I have that darker side to me where it's like, I don't know if that makes sense. I have two sides to me. I have the side of me that responds really well to encouragement, and I think that's the more sustainable. But there is this little gasoline that can be poured on a fire of somebody completely undermining or not believing in what you're doing. Because like a good example would be like, I don't know, there's some times where like if somebody's really being cocky and a jerk about their art, I kind of want to sit next to them and be like, all right, let's do a draw off. Like, let's put somebody in this room in front of us and let's see who draws it better. You know, like which is a weird part. Of course, the older I get, the more I realize that like I am not the best artist in the room. And but there is a little bit of a competitive. I think you have to have a little bit of a competitive thing, especially when you're younger. Less so now. Chris said, I'm looking at a hefty book of Detective Perez book that's really inspiring. I have done nowhere near that many pages. Yeah, I feel exhausted on page 175 at this point. And Paul, I don't know how you've managed to like lap that by like 2 books. It's kind of wild, man. You're a machine. Paul is incredibly good. And you guys should check out the Detective Perez books. I'm going to put on some music here just to share a little bit of what I've been doing. Because, you know, I am making these to be listened to. The first 2 have been mastered by my buddy Robbie. The other 2 will be mastered by my buddy Robbie, but I never want to press him too hard on like deadlines for that kind of thing because it's a project of love and not a project for deadlines. And he is collaborating on this with Lost Woods recording of his own free will and time. And so I never want to be like, where's the file, Robbie? You know? All right. Let's see here. So let me drag 4 of these in. Hopefully this doesn't crash the stream. I'm going to... Ooh. That just played 4 at once. I apologize. And now I will play them. Sorry for that madness. Did that literally play all 4 songs at once for a second? I was just dragging the files and I didn't realize they'd auto play the second I dragged them in. But I'm gonna play the first 4 tracks that I have. The first 2 are mastered. The other 2 are like sneak previews. So you know it should be pretty fun because you'll be able to hear the mastered version later. If you guys want to hear the music, if you don't, then whatever. I'm probably still gonna play. And then we're gonna shade. the next panel. So we're on panel 3 of 10 that I have to get through on this stream before I can have lunch. And the lunch is the incentive. Because, you know, why not? Why not incentivize ourselves as artists? So I'm putting on my headphones so I can listen to it with you. These are actually like some of the first times I've re-listened to these tracks anyway. Sneak preview of my next album. Here's track 1. Oh, Paul said we're hosting Thanksgiving tomorrow. Frozen pizza, beer, and football. No cooking. That's smart. That is smart. Luckily, unluckily, my family's out of town. But luckily, my immediate family is still here, and so I'm gonna do Thanksgiving at the grandma's at my mom's house. I'm so programmed to calling her grandma because she's my kid's grandma. But anyhow, while they're kind of in Utah, so I'm going to take a break from my crazy work routine to like enjoy a tiny Thanksgiving meal and then possibly play some rock and roll. So I have like one day free from work on my vacation. So that's the nice part is like, luckily we don't have to cook, which is great. Cause we've had to prep Thanksgiving a couple years. I know back during COVID too, we would do a Thanksgiving meal and then like take it to family members and stuff and like drop it at the door. It was so depressing. So I feel like especially after lockdowns and stuff like that, like having a gathering on Thanksgiving is something I really, whether I have a deadline or not, I want to make time for. All right, here we go. Here's some music. Here's track 1. Oh, wait. Let me change the audio setting here. I am so sorry, guys. Advanced audio properties. I'm going to make sure I have it on. Okay. Oh. I am sorry. I'm going to restart that, guys. Okay. These are going to be a little sketchy, but we'll get through them. Okay, here we go. Let's hear it one more time. What the heck is going on? Okay, let's see if I can get this to work again. All right, so that was pretty cool. Soul Penguin said, I had to sleep more earlier, so the after midnight stream was a bit late for me recently. Yeah, I understand. Phil says it has a sort of 90s flair to it. That makes sense, because I was I am a 90s teenager. I was a teenager in the 90s, so it makes sense. Probably influences my taste. But yeah, yeah, I wasn't expecting a ton of people to show up at my like 2 a.m. stream, but I was coloring, so I might be doing another one tonight. I don't know, or I should say tomorrow morning. Happy Thanksgiving, by the way, guys. Like we're not quite there, but we're like a day away. Hopefully you guys have been having like some time off. I hope. That's been really nice for me, getting time off. I know it's like I'm gunning pretty hard on the comic, and so I'm probably working a little harder than I do during my non-breaks. But to me, like the idea of like listening to like philosophy and like working on art just is like that to me is like a fun vacation. Like that's what I would choose to do. Regardless, like if I had $1 million, I'd be like, sweet, I get to work on my comic like a lunatic. So I know a lot of people, if they were given like endless resources, would probably be like, I'm going to Italy or something. I'm the opposite. I'm like, I'm gonna hole up in my little hobbit hole and make art. That sounds like a more kind of fun thing to kind of do to me. So anyhow. Hopefully you guys dug that. I'm going to play another one. Soul Penguin said, happy Thanksgiving. It's been busy for me, but mostly because I work harder on personal projects during off time. Yeah, same here. Phil says, as a Canadian, we had our Thanksgiving last month, but happy Thanksgiving to you down in the South. Yeah. Well, Philip, I got to admit, I'm still happy the Dodgers, smoked Canada. Like, I'm glad LA beat Canada in the World Series, and I look forward to the next one, where we will decimate any hope of Canada ever winning that World Series, because the Dodgers are the best team to ever exist. I'm just teasing. But with that being said, I am envious of my brothers in Canada, because right now, your country's future is more promising than mine. So hopefully we right the ship on our end, so we can stop, hurting our neighbors, because you guys are great. So, and I will say that trip to Toronto was one of my favorite trips I've taken. Like, Canada is good people, very good people. So anyhow, yeah, that being said, I'm going to play the next thing. Paul said, the other day I woke up at 5 a.m. and Josh was talking about people falling in love with AI, not being able to distinguish between machine and man. Yeah, that is the danger of AI in my mind. Is I think that's AI in a nutshell. Is AI is not making art. It's deceiving people to thinking that they're looking at art. AI is not making music. It's deceiving people to think that it's a machine expressing feelings that the machine itself cannot have. And so it's just, if art has something to do with intention or passion or feelings or authenticity, which I think art has everything to do with, then by definition, like AI cannot create art. It just can't. And so what you're looking at is literally just an approximation or a counterfeit of the real thing. And the danger is, this is my new kind of theory on it. Because I've had trouble expressing my feelings about it. Like, why is it so disturbing to me? Why is it different than digital art or something like that? And I've started to realize that the problem is, it's very similar to AI psychosis, where it's like people are being convinced that AI is I mean, there's already cases where people want to marry, like a sim, like an AI sim. And we're human beings, so we establish significance to things. Like, we notoriously have this capability to anthropomorphize things that are beyond what, like, we put human emotions on things. We look at stuffed animals when we're kids and we think they're real. Like, right, you play with toys as a kid and you start attributing these objects with significance that isn't there. It's just it's us putting that significance onto the thing. And I think that's the danger with AI, is that it can be so convincing that not only will people, start thinking that these systems that are counterfeiting the experience of having a conversation are actually humans having a conversation, or these systems that are simulating consciousness, even though they are unconscious, will be so convincingly deceptive that the world buys that it's a conscious being. And I think the overall danger with AI is not a super intelligence. I don't think they're going to get there. The more I listen to people who are working on developing AI, that is one of the big concerns about it, is not that they're going to get a super intelligence, but the people who are programming these things have more of a concern that it's going to get so good at faking it and fooling people, and then our instinct to anthropomorphize or personify our own experience, like we're mapping it onto things that are inanimate. We've had that since the beginning of time, right? People would build idols and like worship, and then eventually, they'd make these like golden statues that they believed were so convincing, right, that we would sacrifice children to them. Like, this is something we used to do, like, as humans, right? To like inanimate objects that we just got so convinced were actual animate, like conscious beings. And this is like way before AI. So introduce something like AI that is a really good liar. It's a really good approximation. It's a great counterfeit, and it's getting better and better. People will be fooled, and what they sacrifice, accepting it as the real thing is really dangerous, right? And I think overall, like, you could end up in a scenario like the Matrix, except unlike the Matrix, the machine doesn't even have a conscious desire. The program doesn't have consciousness, right? It's us choosing to plug ourselves in and suicide ourselves is the big concern of most AI people, is like the idea that people could be convinced that they'll be able to upload their consciousness. And then other people seeing it and seeing this approximation of the person who just suicided themselves online, right? Like, as an AI generated just fake presentation of what that person was. But it will be so convincing that other people will just opt to, like, sign up for the suicide machine. It's crazy, I know, in sci-fi, but like, that's the concern that I'm hearing from, when I've listened to people who actually are familiar with the code and stuff. Like, none of them, nobody who's serious about it that I've heard thinks we're anywhere near being able to make conscious machines, but they think that we're very near, if not already, at the point of having machines that can fool people to think that they're conscious. And that's where the danger lies. So anyhow, I'm extrapolating that to art, and why it bothers me when people are considering AI art is, like, I think authenticity and emotional significance is inherent in what it is to observe art or read art. Like, I think there's something about art is impossible to define, much like consciousness, right? Like, the two are kind of intrinsically similar, where they're in these areas of like ethics and philosophy where nobody has a strict definition of what these things are. And anytime somebody tries to pin it down to a strict definition, there's always exceptions, right? Phil says, don't diss my chat GPT friend Gary. He's always there for me and knows exactly what I need, says what I want, and I mean need to hear. Soul Penguin said, then people go and tell AI to make something in the style of a particular artist. Sometimes the AI even puts a ripoff of their watermark or signature into the art. Yeah, so anyhow, like I guess my point is it's a counterfeit and it's not art. And it might look very convincingly like art, and it might get really good at fooling people into thinking that this is a thing. It might get so good at it that we're going to see movies that are completely meaningless that we get fooled into thinking there is meaning behind, because we've created the ultimate counterfeit bill, right? It can counterfeit consciousness. It can counterfeit human experience. It probably will be able to counterfeit love. It'll probably be able to counterfeit all these things that people collectively kind of tend to think are like the purposes of life, right? Like meaning, love, family, and art, right? Beauty. So it's like, that's my point, is like, it's a false god, and it's a false god of art. Like, I don't know if that makes sense. That's because I've been trying to think of it like, why isn't it art? Like, I've been trying to get to the core of that in my own head, and leery to make a judgment like it can't be art, right? Because I don't want to be one of those people. Like when Chris and I were coming up in art, there was a big debate as to whether digital art was real art, right? And I don't want to be one of those guys who's like anti-Tool. Where it's like, that's not real guitar because it's an electric guitar, or that's not real music because it's synthesizer, or that's not real music because it uses sampling. Like, there are things like that I've tended to be on the other side of the argument, where I've been like, why wouldn't it be art? Like, that's a ridiculous claim. So when it comes to AI, using a lot of those justifications, it was hard for me to pin down why it's wrong. And I realized that's what's wrong with it, is it's a counterfeit. It's a counterfeit of the very meaning of art, because the synthesizer in this case is playing itself, right? And only playing itself because it was programmed to do so. It was programmed to fool people into thinking that it's making some kind of expression of humanity, and it's not. And that's the thing that's dangerous about it, is we're heading into a territory where, soulless, meaningless, just nonsense, becomes the general, generally so good at seeming like it has a soul that people forget what they're doing. But it doesn't surprise me, because, to be honest, there's a lot of soulless, meaningless music and art out there anyway, that, is being presented by suits, in watered down, just terrible fashion that the public just generally eats up, right? So it's not surprising to me, if you just go one step further. Generally, there's a lot of people out there who don't care. Like, they don't care about soul or meaning, or the idea that there's a person behind the product, and capitalism kind of gears us towards that as well, where it's like, hey, is it efficient? Is it cheap? Cool, I don't care, like, how it was made, right? So we're already kind of primed for it. We're primed for, being fed false religion. I don't know if that makes sense. It's like we're primed to be fed idols that we're gonna prop up and kind of think have significance, even though they're just like, stone, like, or sculpture, or in this case, an actual machine that is really good at approximating and faking being a person. So I think that's why I've boiled it down, and I think yesterday when I was talking about it, like, is when that finally clicked. I think that's my big argument. I haven't tested the argument, so I would love to test it with debate. I don't want to be a debate channel So I had a moment where I thought that would be really fun, but I realized as I get older, I enjoy debate in the sense of testing an idea, and I do want to be able to have a healthy back and forth with people. But I'm also at the age where there's some people who really just don't debate for that reason. Like they don't want to have an exchange of ideas to sharpen their own. There's a whole chunk of people who just want to have debates for humiliation or for like scoring points, like it's some kind of sport. And that was interesting to me. That sport was interesting to me when I was younger, when I was in debate and in mock trial and stuff like that. But it's a lot less interesting to me now that I'm older. Because like to me, it's more I'd like to know if my idea is salient on that. But I think it would withstand debate, and I will have that discussion with people offline to kind of test and refine and see if there's holes in that logic. But the other thing that's weird is with art, that's always a sketchy topic. It has been since the beginning of time, really. I mean, like, what is art? Like, since the word even came into existence, nobody's been able to define it. It's so fundamental of a thing in art that it almost gets tiresome to even have that conversation of like, what is even art, right? But I know deep down, at least to myself, I think that authenticity and expression, and human expression, human authenticity, are definitely, I think, major factors in what makes art. And I think concepts are what make art. And there is something really dangerous to me about just a cold, heartless, amount of zeros and ones approximating something that can play people like a fiddle, like where it's just fooling people into thinking this is something of significance. And I don't think it's much different than like carving like a gold statue and sacrificing children to it. I mean, maybe not to that extent, but it is kind of sacrificing humanity at the altar of this fake thing, and where there's no human agency behind it, and no intention, no expression. It doesn't struggle to make art. To struggle is human. AI being immortal risks nothing by making decisions to choose what is important. Exactly. And then Paul said, as somebody who will be cyborg next month, I embrace tech, but we also need to be aware of what makes us thrive as humans: health, relationships, creativity. Yeah, I agree. I'm not anti-tech. I just think that we're in a similar boat where if somebody were to tell you, like if somebody called you today, this is me testing that argument again, but if somebody called you today and they had one of those AI bots that was made by like Tesla or whatever, Elon Musk's AI thing, which honestly, I don't know. I don't really use AI, so I'm not as familiar, but I've read articles and watched people like literally like think they're having relationships with these things, which is insane to me. So they aren't really treating it like a Google search engine, where it's analytic data that's just spitting out returns, which is basically what AI is. It's just pouring through information and just kind of spitting out what it thinks you want to hear. And it's not even thinking, really. It's just like statistically, like it's just looking at analytic data. So the idea that if you had a friend who basically downloaded this app or something, right? A really close friend who downloaded an app where it's and they're a single guy or something, and they download this app and end up falling in love with an AI, and inviting you to the wedding, right? How are you going to respond to that friend, right? You would clearly have like I think if you're a good friend, you're going to have a conversation with your friend going through psychosis there, right? And you're going to be like, this is psychosis. Like, I know that it might feel like this is a person, but this is an app, right? It is an AI. Anyone in their right mind would tell somebody that. But right now, we're in this weird walking on eggshells with art when it's like it's as absurd of a premise to say this is art. It's as absurd to say that AI is making art as it is to say I'm going to marry AI, right? Like it's both are equally psychosis. And one of the problems I have with it is the more we encourage one psychosis, which is this is art, the more it's going to kind of normalize the other kind of psychosis, which is like, this is a human. And it's not, there's no consciousness involved in it, no matter how well it can deceive people to kind of, and there's profit behind deceiving people. I mean, there's a company that I read about the other day that is literally telling people to download an AI where they can upload pictures of dead relatives. And now you can have grandma passed away last year. You can have her at your Thanksgiving through AI, and the grandkids can get to know grandma because we have an AI that's going to approximate this dead person. And it's like, this exists. There's a company that's profiting off of people's loss and desire to see, loved ones who've passed like again. And they're marketing this as like a healthy way to kind of deal with loss. But it's like, instead it's just psychosis. It's actual psychosis. And it's manipulating people at their deepest points to all the things they find valuable, like family relationships. And it's like a drug. It's a drug that's being marketed to people and pushed and honestly encouraged in every realm of the world. Like, in education, they're encouraging AI a lot. The use of AI is just something people are constantly going to be pushing, and I don't think is always negative. But I think it becomes negative when you start approximating agency or human qualities to like when you start what would it be, qualia? When you start giving the material actual qualia is where I think we end up in like a real dangerous territory, because the material is not full of significance, right? The material is material. Art is immaterial at its truest form. And it's good I've broken with my younger self who thought that, commercial art was just as viable of art. I don't agree with that anymore. I don't think by being commercial, something becomes not art, but I definitely think there is a lot of commercial art that is not art. It's not a human expressing themselves. It's a boardroom doing statistics on what's going to sell best and basically force feeding it to a general public under the disguise of, significance and art. So that's a long thing, but Chris said, I predict a day when we'll have a court case about what constitutes a conscious citizen and everything that entails. If corporations can legally be people, definitely possible. And again, the danger is you have an algorithm that's run like it's the opposite of Blade Runner, right? Blade Runner was about, can androids dream of electric sheep? And it posits the idea of these conscious androids, and how horrible humans would be to conscious androids, where they would justify horrific actions to this, species of thing that has agency. And that's that, that was such a dire, dangerous warning about human nature. But what I fear more is that people will think it's Blade Runner when in actuality it's literally just a machine. Just, it's like somebody thinking a video game is like, somebody's playing Grand Theft Auto and they think they're actually stealing cars. That's the more likely thing, is that, people are going to start actually thinking this is reality when it's not. And it's like there's nothing there but just data. And it becomes really dangerous with modern philosophy too, because if philosophy starts moving to an area where it starts thinking of ourselves as just data, then it just justifies the dehumanization of people, at the strongest cost to everything that we value as making us human. So that's me thinking out loud, but that's kind of where I'm at on the issue. Soul Penguin says the issue of consciousness gets real controversial territory in our society today. People have reached a point where they deem an AI to have more humanity than an infant. Well, and then again, consciousness is an important thing because it is something undefinable, but we all kind of know what it is. And art is like that too, where it's slippery, but and with consciousness very similarly, we know what it's not more than we know what it is. Like, we're much more aware. Like, if somebody made a claim that a table is conscious, you would know, like, just innately. And I hate the rational part of me really hates the idea of something being self-evident, self-evidential arguments always bother me, right? Because you want like the rational, provable thing. But there are some things in life that are self-evident, and that's definitely one of them, where it's like consciousness is self-evident because we experience it, right? And so just through experiencing consciousness, we know a little bit about maybe not so much what consciousness is, but we definitely know what it's not. And to the point where if you read a philosophy, I think most rational minds, if you read a philosophy that's basically talking about like a rock having equal conscious agency as a human, right? You would think of this as an absurdity just from experience, so you'd know something about what consciousness is by what it's not. And I don't think anyone in the right mind is going to argue that, like, zeros and ones on a computer screen are conscious. Like, I just don't think that's the case. And I know we could get into, semantics about this and stuff, but it's just like, I think the danger is when we start devaluing the conscious experience, and also I think art would be a big one of like one of those things that really differentiates people, and the value of people is like our capacity to be creative and rational. And I think, like, again, these things are really at challenge with AI for sure. But I think the consciousness thing is really important, right? Because I think that, to me, when I think about what do we value in people, I do think we tend to value consciousness, right? The time where you're like, if you have a loved one, who's sick and they're in a coma or something, generally the time you're going to unplug the machine is when you realize they're not ever going to regain consciousness, right? Consciousness is something we value a lot. And art is somehow tied into that. Like, in my mind, it's you need a conscious agent to make art. I just think that's the case. There's something about self-expression in art, and I that's what I think. So I don't know, anyhow.
Penguin said, so cool seeing an active chat today. Hey, Scott, how's it going? All right, I'm going to play track 2 and get off my soapbox for 2 seconds, and we'll listen to this. All right, so that's track 2. That's like the 2 that have been mastered by my buddy Robbie. Oh, thanks, guys. It sounds like people were really digging that. Scott said, "I love this song. It's one of my favorites you've done." I've been in a jam, like a good point. I have a Strat that's really been inspiring me. And on my last album, I was like switching guitars a bunch, but this whole album, I've just been like sticking to my my Fender Strat, just because it's such an inspiring guitar. So I've been rocking that. Yeah, it's been really fun. It's got like such a, I don't know, it's been interesting. I feel like I've been rediscovering that guitar and what made it such a such a fun guitar to start on. Gets me much more down to like bare bones rock and roll and more kind of enjoying just like the tone of the guitar on simple chords and stuff. But anyhow, thank you. I'm glad you guys dig that. Let's get into some weirder stuff. So this stuff hasn't been mastered yet. So these are raw tracks. So like the difference being, you know, when you hear a mastered track, you're going to hear things a lot more clearly. You're going to hear the drums in particular a lot more clear. On an unmastered track, you're going to kind of hear roughly what it'll sound like, but it's not going to sound quite as good to the ear in theory. So these are raw mixes, so they're just going to be a little less like refined in the quality of what you're hearing. But it's, it's like step 2. It's almost like seeing it's like watching an in progress comic page being done. So I'm gonna play that next one. Paul said, "Did I hear some cowbell?" On that one, I don't know if I did cowbell. I did use I've been using a like a Roland 808 kind of vibe on all of these tracks. Like for some reason I've been really enjoying what happens when you take like an old school drum machine and mix it with kind of a more modern drum sound. Just to kind of exploit the fact that, on these albums that I've been doing, I'm using a drum machine, not an actual drummer. I want to kind of play with that and have those kind of Roland beats kind of in the background a little bit. But I think what you're hearing is probably more like the that, and then there was like a Moog kind of vibe that I was playing on keyboard that was like the do 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 do, and that might have sounded a little cowbellish. I don't know. Okay, here we go. We've got a little more to go on this. Where are we at for time? Jim's here. How's it going, Jim? Hopefully good. Speaking of, let's play the Kemble files in honor of Mr. Lujan. I'll be right back.
Well, Mr. Stryker, I have you now. There is no escape. You will tell me where the Kemble files are, or you will die beneath the crushing electric arms of my shoptopus.
I hear you chirping, little birdie, but JT Stryker ain't no stool pigeon.
Very well. You have left me no choice. Bring out the doctor. Say hello to Dr. Hodges. I'm sure you're familiar with the doctor and his work.
If by work you mean the murder and torture of innocents, yeah, I'm familiar.
I've waited a long time for this moment, Stryker. I'm going to enjoy every minute of it.
That's what your mother said.
Well, that's a horrible thing to say. You don't even know my mother.
Don't let him interrupt you. Come on, man.
Look, fellas, we can tango here all night, but it doesn't change a thing. You're never getting the Kemble files.
Oh, I beg to differ, Stryker. I have certain negotiation methods.
Your mom has negotiation methods.
Stop it. That didn't even make sense. That's not even... it's not applicable.
Listen up, compadres, and listen good. Option 1, I'm giving you 2 bozos and out. You untie me, I walk out of here, and everybody goes home happy. Option 2, I kill everyone in this room and then...
You idiot! You killed him!
I felt triggered. I've been learning to stand up to bullies. I just read 2 stories. Joshua Kemble's raw, introspective graphic novel chronicling mental health, faith, and the struggle for redemption. I also read Jacob's Apartment, a coming-of-age graphic novel about faith, love, and post-college existential drama. They've changed my life choices.
I'm sorry. I had no idea. I too am a fan of the books of the Joshua Kemble. But I'm still going to have to kill you.
Kill me with kindness?
That one was in honor of Mr. Jim Lujan, who just joined us. That was an ad he made. I'll play Paul's in a little bit too. But yeah, I appreciate that longer one that gave me just enough time to get some coffee so we can get back to it. But anyhow, so that, yeah, I don't know. It's the AI thing's interesting to me because I'm not sure. I think this is kind of getting closer to why it bugs me so much. Is like I think it's the approximation or simulation of human endeavor. And so I think that this ties a little bit into like one of the analogies I thought of a long time ago. I think because Corey naturally was always talking about AI, and was right about it. But like one of the things that I've brought up before is like it's the equivalent of like it felt really good watching the World Series, because when you see Shohei Ohtani like crack a home run and then and continue to do that 4 times and also pitch 6 innings, scoreless innings at the same time, it's like it's fun to watch because it's a human endeavor, and like it wouldn't be that interesting to me to watch a machine pitch 6 scoreless innings and hit 4 home runs. I don't think that would be as interesting. Oh, nice. Jim said, I sampled you saying the word vibrations for a new Rick Murphy track. Do I need to clear this with your lawyers? I want to hear it. That sounds amazing. That is so funny. I'm going to play some songs that are unmastered now. I only have 2 more that I haven't released yet, because I'm working on, a new solo thing. This is what I'm always doing. I'm always cooking up music. I like Rick Murphy albums, by the way, Jim. I think Rick Murphy is amazing. Jim has some love albums by Rick Murphy, but I'm eager, Jim, to hear that. That sounds hilarious. When did I say vibrations? All right, let's see here. Soul Penguin said, I was randomly telling my friend about Jim's infinity pool earlier this week. Nice. Anytime I try to explain Jim's work, it's one of those things where like I'm either really bad at pitching, or it's just that like you really have to check out his work. Like, it's hard for me to pitch Jim's cartoons other than they're great. They're kind of I don't know, the dialogue's very Pulp Fiction-esque. Like it's like a TV show where all the side characters are the main characters. And it highlights like the kind of weird areas of town, like anywhere you would drive, and you'd see something strange kind of going on. Best example of a Jim Lujan cartoon is when Jim and I were hanging out on a vacation that our families took and stuff, and it was super fun. It was with Cambria, with like me, Jim, Leanne, and my wife and kid and stuff. We all went, but Jim and I go to this bar, and we're having a conversation, and there's like, meanwhile, in the background at this bar, but which is, by the way, the bar is straight out of a Jim Lujan cartoon. Like it's the strangest bar I've ever been to. It has like strange like gold murals of like half naked people. It's like this weird dive bar we just kind of stumbled upon. It's just like a really strange place. And then there's like this old, just creepy like country couple that are like having like a 3-way hookup kind of connection. Like they're not actually having a 3-way, but it's like a love triangle going on at the table next to us, with like these two guys that clearly frequent this bar. And then this old lady, like it's like these old, very bar folks. Like, and it's not an attractive sight. It's just bizarre. That's a Jim Lujan cartoon. It's being in that area of town where you're just like you're walking into a liquor store and you're not sure. It's kind of just sketchy, you know, but also like quaint and weird. That's all of Jim's like cartoons are that kind of scenario. I can never pitch it too well. Jim said I texted you the file where I pulled the sample from. Nice. I'll check that out. I'm not quite sure how to play that on stream. So here we go. We've got this kind of going. And let me play you guys the next track of music, because that'll be fun. This is track 3 of the next solo thing. This one's unmastered, so it's not quite complete, but it's like a sneak preview. Sketchboy said, we took a weekend trip to the Central Coast full of uniquely odd places. I still want to stay at the Madonna Inn one day. I think that would be amazing too. Paul said, I think I live in a Jim Lujan cartoon. Okay.
An accident again.
accident again. I thought you were a friend, and it feels like the ground is giving out below me, and I'm falling. An accident again. I thought you were a friend. Please say something you think that's a positive view. I can't fix this broken window. Nice. Jim was saying, I like your new production. It's clear, and I like your mellow tone, not melatonin. I like your melatonin. Yeah, I've been like, I don't know. It's interesting. Like each time I do like a solo thing, and I think Jim, you've got a similar thing, or it's like, I don't know. I have kind of a rough theme in mind, and I definitely wanted to, make things a little more chill and poppy on this album, but also mellower. And I've been intentionally kind of slowing tempos a little bit, just to kind of get into some, you know, I don't know, some of the kind of rock type stuff I like. But who knows where it's going to go? Because the next track I'm going to play you is nuts. It's a weird one. That song, I don't think it's that hard to like decipher from it, but it's like when I was writing it, I was trying to think back to, you know, anytime, you know, it hasn't happened to me in years, right? But when I was younger, you know, if you had like a close friendship and this is definitely something I experienced a lot in my 20s, where, you know, in a close friendship, when it starts kind of unraveling and you realize that like the person, I don't know if you guys have ever had that, but like I've definitely had times where I've, you know, hung out with somebody, enjoyed their company and stuff like that, and then it just like almost like unraveling. You start realizing this person is a nightmare, you know, like and you realize like they don't say anything positive, like they're never saying anything positive. And so it's that that moment of like, hey, could you just say like one positive thing just to like, you know, be human for a second? Or is all you do just negative, you know? Like, and I haven't had a friendship like that in a long time, because like, you know, you get older, I think you get better at finding your tribe and kind of clicking and gelling with people. And then I think also things become a little less tragic and serious. Even though, oddly enough, as you get older, Soul Penguin said, dig it when the heavier guitar drops. Yeah, nice. Thanks. Paul said, to Chat GPT, tell me a joke with a pig in a cartoon. And he said, why did the pig refuse to leave the cartoon world? Every time he tried, he kept drawing a blank. Nice. I don't know. I don't know if I like that one. But it is very dad joke. But anyhow, so yeah, like that's what I drew for that song. Let's play the last track here. This is the one I think I finished the vocals for this yesterday. This was me thinking about the Damon and the Soul of the West, that book I just have been reading. It influenced some of the lyrics, so here it is.
Are we just
So yeah, that's the last one. Like those last two haven't been mastered yet, but I'm digging where it's going. One of the things I love, for those of you who don't know, I'm a fan of guitars, right? And I recently acquired a USA Fender Strat, and like, so my dream guitars growing up, I started on a Stratocaster. And then my dreams of guitars that I wanted to own growing up were like the pinnacle of what I could own was a US Tele, and a USA Strat. Like those were like the two, just like I started on a Strat. I learned and grew to love Teles. And then I got really into Firefly guitars, and I still love Firefly guitars. I think they're incredible guitars. Jim knows this for a fact, that they make great guitars for like a budget, which is crazy. So anyhow, I ended up getting a Strat knockoff by Firefly, and it renewed my love of Stratocasters. Like, because my first guitar was a Strat. Prior to that, I was like a Tele guy. Like that was my go-to. This is like the guitar I'm always going to play is a Telecaster. And anyhow, it renewed my love of Stratocasters, so that when a deal came up and I was able to get a USA Fender Strat, that's like a Fiesta Red. It's a beautiful guitar. I ended up pulling the trigger, and that is what I've been using for everything on this album. It is such a good guitar, and it's inspiring in a way where, because it's what I learned on, I start kind of going back to some of the things I loved about rock, like when I was actively in bands and playing a Stratocaster, where we had kind of a Weezer-ish pavement kind of indie rock vibe. And I think there's something about that guitar that just kind of brings back some of those abilities to not noodle, like to while I'm doing a little bit of noodling, to just kind of hold a riff or just enjoy the tone and let it ring. There's something about a Strat that just kind of brings out a different kind of playing in me. That's more kind of in touch with that like youthful me when I'm playing. Whereas like when I play a Telecaster, I think I might even play better, like technically, but it doesn't bring out. Anyhow, point being, it's been a really inspiring guitar. So I think I'm going to be sticking with that for the entirety of the album, where I'm going to use my Stingray for bass and use a lot of like Moog-ish, like synthesizer kind of things, really lean into synthesizers and orchestration a little bit. Because like I tend to want to just be real minimal with things. And in this case, I'll still be minimal, like where I'll limit myself to like one or two synth sounds. But I think I've figured out the kind of formula for what tools I'm going to allow myself to use on this album. So it's a lot more poppy and kind of indie vibes on this one. But I think it's going to get real experimental and weird. But also, it's going to be slower tempo. Like, I'm not trying to speed things up or do hardcore or anything. There are going to be a lot slower tempos on it. And then we'll see where that kind of leads. But I feel like anytime I start an artistic project, maybe you guys will understand this too. Paul about that joke said it is decidedly not funny. Yeah, I like a good dad joke, but that one was like, yeah, that one was the stretch. You know, that even made me, who appreciates really bad cheesy jokes, like kind of just have a dead response. So yeah, but anyhow, the maybe you guys will experience this too, but I do find when I start a project, it's good for me to like in my head, I come up with like limitations. And on this, I definitely have some limits in mind for like the next album, where all 10 of these songs, I'm going to pretty much stick with my Stratocaster. The tempo is going to be decidedly slower than I've been working with recently. So we're going to be talking like 80 to 90 beats per minute at max. I think there might be like one exception to that, but I think in general it's going to be a lot slower. And I'm going to be utilizing synths, but when I'm using synths, I'm not going to allow myself to use more than like 2 synth instruments. And if I use them, they need to either be orchestral, like strings, or they need to be like completely generic sounding, like real synthy sounding things. That last one though, it was interesting because like these are things that like I love about recording or playing music, where because there was so much brightness going on with the guitars, where I had 2 guitar tracks. That's another thing. I'm trying to limit myself to 2 guitar tracks, although I am trying to double the fuzz a little bit more. So there might be more than 2 guitar tracks when it comes to fuzz, but it's still going to be the same parts. It's just like to get a little more punch to it, I might kind of add an extra track that has the same exact guitar line, but it's just a different distortion effect so that it has more of a live sound to it. But yeah, so like that's kind of like my limitations are basically like 2 guitar parts, even if it's like multiple guitar tracks. I can only have like 2 parts, so it would be like equivalent to having like 2 guitarists on stage. Anyhow, these are the little limitations. And then on the last album I did a lot of vocal arrangements. So like I think that was one of the limitations for all my songs on the last album, Empty Rooms, where I was I kind of made a rule where every song was going to have a harmony and a deeper vocal part. So if you listen to Empty Rooms, it's like every track has like a harmony to it. Whether I did that well or not is up to you. But on this one, I'm like, no, very minimal. So it's just going to have one vocal track and one vocal part. And then if I do a harmony, it has to be like really subtle, only in maybe like one part of the song. So that's kind of what I'm aiming for. But again, as I play around, those rules might be broken. But like any creative projects, that's what I'm curious about with you guys. I think having parameters really helps. Like having some kind of, even if it's like a subconscious thing, just creating like these are the tools I have to work with. Like having one toolbox with like 4 tools in it that you're limited to, I think really forces you to get creative. Anyhow, not that anyone was asking, but that's kind of what I'm thinking for this next one. Which is cool because I'll probably do a little bit of recording after I might allow myself to noodle on guitar after I finish toning this page, which we're very close to doing. We have 5 down and 5 more to go, but the last 4 should go relatively quick. You can quote me on that in like 5 hours when I'm done. But I think that's one of the fun parts about creativity is like, I don't know. I don't want to get too heady about it, but I do feel like we, the Bernardo Kastrup stuff. I know that Paul was saying like he has a friend who's like obsessed with Bernardo Kastrup, but I can see why, because like that book is really cool and it talks a lot about like the muses or the daemon or whatever. And I don't fully buy into the whole philosophy, but it's like anything that has semblances that ring true, I tend to value. And there's definitely a lot of ideas in there that I very much resonate with, about like the nature of inspiration and the nature of being kind of like called to do work. I think some of it can be like dangerous, like philosophically, but as weird as it is, I do think there is something to creativity where you are connecting to something beyond yourself. And it goes, I think that goes to music too. It's like that stage, it's why comedy has writers' rooms, there is something in the air when you start playing with ideas, where you're like rewarded with these other ideas that kind of come out of the ether, that you can't really, like, I don't know, you can't really attribute to yourself, and I love that about music. When you're playing music, sometimes parts or things that you're adding to it just kind of come from like an instinctual vibe, and it's the same with art. He said he's reading Materialism is Baloney. Nice. But I definitely think there is something in the immaterial that we touch when we do art, There's another sample for Jim to use is we like to touch the immaterial. I really do want to hear that sample. I'm going to listen to that. That's one of my rewards, Jim, is I'm going to allow myself to listen to that when I'm off stream and once I'm able to eat lunch. So my reward will be lunch and Jim Lujan hilarity. But yeah, I don't know. I do think that's one of the things that's fun about art is like those little moments of spontaneity. Here I did not finish the inks, and that I should have done. Okay. We are getting there on this, though. I don't know why I started with the background here, though. Usually I start with the key figures. What are you guys working on? Chris, how's Posmonauts going? I hope it's going well. I finally got around to being able to like visit that site, and the website you set up is awesome for it. I really dig it. I love the idea, the concept, but I do think it's fun when you have those moments where it's like there's something other than us that I think generates ideas in art. I definitely think that. And I'm also a firm believer in like intention and planning. Sometimes, the idea that you're going to just sit down and make a beautiful drawing without structure or intent or, the ability to use tools like is kind of equivalent to showing up without a blueprint to make a building, but there is something in the idea of ideating and creating meaning out of the blank page or whatever that I do think is like touching on something of the divine. If I can wax, overly intellectual about it, But Bernardo Kastrup, like again, the only thing I've read, but I've watched him speak a couple times, and then I've read The Daemon and the Soul of the West. I'm about a chapter away from finished with that book, and it's a really good book. It's also like a neat book because it might be a really good introduction because it's not like heavy philosophy. It's more just like an outpouring of his ideas. And a little bit of biography too, which I always really appreciate. and I think might be a good preparation before I get into his like really heavy philosophy, which I do plan on reading because it's like it's really good. I might even read that a little bit more during lunch, after I listen to the hilarious clip that Jim Lujan made. Let's see here. We're getting there. I need to have... There's a bit of a tangent here that's kind of bugging me, and I got to see if it'll subside as a tangent when I get the shading in there. But like the idea of that line kissing his face is really irritating to me now that I see it. When I was drawing it, it wasn't bugging me as much, but now it's like a tangent that's unforgivable. So I'm going to fix that because that's just awful. You see that tangent right in front of his face? It's like, ugh. Let's fix that. And I know tangents are kind of inevitable when you're doing art, but can I at least kind of correct that a little bit so that it's not as blatant and horrible? So there's more clear overlap, even if I'm cheating the... There we go. I don't even mind that I'm cheating the chair, because it's like that was just too much of a tangent there. A little bit better now. Pretty good timing too, because the dogs are gonna want their lunch about the same time that I'm gonna want my lunch, so that'll be a good break. All right, we're getting there. I'm almost wondering now if I might have to break for lunch before I finish the page. I was trying to be all hardcore about it, but this one panel might take a while, so I'm thinking maybe I'll do a lunch break and then come back and then stream as I finish it. Well, let's see how far we get. I don't want to throw in the towel just yet in this epic battle against our mortal coils. I think I'm going to see how far I can get. But I will be forgiving of myself if I have to take a break. Paul said, catch y'all later. Thanks for the stream, Josh. Nice. Thanks. Soul Penguin said, might have to dip too. It's been great. Dig the conversation, music, and art. Thanks. Appreciate it. Maybe that is a good point. So if I got people dipping out, maybe I will take a break for lunch after I finish this panel. Because I'm starting to get hungry. The dogs are going to be hungry in about 20 minutes. This is a funny thing about my dogs. I don't know if I've told you guys this story. So, Chris has met our insane dog. So we had this pug who has since passed named CK. And he was a cute pug. But oh my gosh, he was like there were just wires crossed in this dog that were just insane. Like when we lived in Portland, we tried to get like somebody to help us like an animal trainer, like a dog trainer, to help us with like training the dog. And they actually refused. They said there was something wrong with our dog. Like he was just crazy. There were just wires crossed where he was just insane. He was like food obsessed. But anyhow, because of that, we used to feed our dogs, their dinner around like 7 or like 6-ish, 6 p.m. And so in the morning, and then they'd get dinner, around 6. But CK was such a like turd about getting food that my wife kept giving in to like feeding him earlier and earlier and earlier. So there was a while where it was like, like it went from 7 to like, or not 7, from 6 to like 5. And then it was like, okay, fine, we'll just feed you at 5. And then it went from 5 to like 4. And it's like, okay, we'll feed you at 4. And at about this time, we, by the time it had shifted to about 4 o'clock, that's when we got Bernie. Bernie was like the little brother. And so it's like he got used to being fed at 4. But then our dog just kind of curmudgeonly worked his way to getting fed at 3. And then eventually his dinner time became 2 o'clock. And so that's kind of when the dogs want to get their stuff, is like around 2, which is hilarious to me. But then CK has since passed. He passed on as a very old grandpa, and we were sad to see him go, as much as he was kind of also a lunatic. And so it's like we miss him, but it's also like our lives are our lives have not gotten worse since his passing. But we miss him. Like he was a sweetie, He was a sweet dog. Like he didn't really have any harmful bones in his body, but he was like just a nightmare of a dog, even though he was sweet. And harmless. I don't know if that makes sense. But because of that, now Bernie is like just on the CK schedule for food. So like once it gets to like about 2, you'll probably see like 2 pups, because now our new dog, Georgie, will, he's indoctrinated to this early dinner time. So around 2 o'clock, like you'll see 2 dogs like kind of come around and be like, oh, what's up? Is it happening? So anyhow, it might be good to kind of end this stream once I finish this page. I do appreciate those of you who've like showed up and rocked with me and listened to music with me and talked philosophy and art with me. It's been very exciting. Let's see here. We're getting through our figure here. All right, here we go. We're going to do our bit of stuff. Yeah, we're definitely gonna end the stream when I finish this. when I finish this background here, because I'm like having those moments of like, whew, I'm a little hungry. Let's see here, but I definitely have to finish the panel. We'll at least do that. I feel that's not too bad, right? We got through what, 6 panels of shading, and that's I don't think that's too bad for one stream, you know. This page is taking extra long though. It's sad because I really was hitting that like page a day kind of count till this page came along. Of all the pages in all the world. All right. We're getting there. We're getting there. But I'd rather do that than like cut corners. Like I don't want to cut corners on quality. It does amaze me, like cartoonists like David Hartman is such an inspiration to me. We have him on every Halloween, and like that guy, you know, with this amount of time, probably would be like 3 pages in to a book. That always kind of kills me, that fast output, you know. But I do think that's in the eye of the beholder, because I've had friends who tell me like, you call yourself slow and like, yeah, you do these things really fast. And it's like, I don't know if that's true. But maybe it is in the eye of the beholder. Kind of like I always, you know, I've mentioned this before, but like there's a cartoonist tendency to look at other cartoonists and go, well, they've got it figured out. They're having a blast doing this, you know. And maybe that is part of that inspiration or the muse, you know, where it's like, really at the end of the day, like, you know, we're all a little nuts to do this kind of thing that we do. And it's not like we're uniquely nuts. I think people doing the things they're called to do are always gonna, you know, there's a mild bit of like sacrifice, whether you're aware of it or not, you know, that goes behind any creative endeavor. Anytime you make something, right, it costs something. Everything worthwhile costs something. I definitely think about like, you know, like having a kid is like the best decision I ever made. But man, that does cost something. Like you lose a lot of time and a lot of money and all kinds of things, you know. But it's worth it. It's like, it's insanely worth it. I'd rather be in a scenario where I'm losing time and money and gaining this amazing experience with my own child, you know, where the loss doesn't even feel like a loss, but there is a loss. Like there is a sacrifice. But it's like a noble, I don't know if that makes sense. It's not like an unwanted sacrifice. Is like there's nothing I'd rather do than kind of hang out with my boy. So in that case, it's like anything I'm sacrificing is really not a big deal compared to the thing I'm gaining. And I feel like it's the same way with art or with anything else, where it's like it always costs something, but like sometimes the cost and the experience is so much worth the cost, you know. I don't know if that makes sense, but yeah, let's see here. Dylan said, hi, you've been in for 2 hours? Yes, I've been in for 2 hours. I'm at unpredictable times, but welcome, Dylan. How you doing? We talked about a lot of things about, I played some previews of my next music coming out. We talked about, I vented about AI. Luhan made some pretty prime jokes. We had the Paul Pate in here. It was an active one, but we're probably shutting it down. And I hate to ditch you, Dylan, but I'll probably be back very shortly. I'm going to basically take a break and eat some food. And then we will finish toning this page after the fact, but I am very hungry. So I'm going to go eat. I will see you guys after that on the next live stream. I appreciate those of you who stopped by. If you're still here, make sure you hit that like button, hit the bell so you get notifications. If you have any questions or things you wanted to talk about, definitely let me know in the chats. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this theory I'm kind of throwing out there that like what's problematic about AI is the counterfeit nature of it, where it's simulating human experience and human expression in a fake way, and that can be really dangerous. So I'd love to hear what you guys think in the comments below, and I will see you guys on the next live stream, where we'll finish this up, and maybe we'll even get into colors, which will probably take forever on this page because of those complicated backgrounds. But I will see you guys then. Have a good one. Thanks for stopping by, and I will see you guys on the next live stream. Bye.